I never imagined my life could feel so quiet while still being full. I had a marriage, a home, a routine that looked solid from the outside, but inside everything felt distant. My wife and I moved through days like two people sharing the same space but not the same life. Conversations turned into reminders, dinners turned into silence, and every night felt like a repeat of the last. I wasn't angry, just tired of feeling invisible in my own home. Tired of pretending that everything was fine when deep down I knew something had faded long ago. Loneliness didn't show up suddenly. It crept in slowly until it became normal. One morning, as I locked my door to leave for work, I noticed someone new across the hall. A woman struggling with a box, hair tied up, cheeks slightly flushed from the effort. She looked up and gave a quick, warm smile, the kind that felt unexpectedly genuine. She introduced herself as Sarah, said she had just moved in, and thanked me when I held the door. There was nothing unusual about the moment, nothing romantic or suggestive, just a neighbor being polite. Still, her energy felt different, light, open, kind. I hadn't felt that kind of connection, even in simple form, for a long time. Over the next few days we exchanged small greetings, quick hellos, polite smiles, short conversations about the building or the weather. I didn't think much of it, but I noticed how those tiny interactions made the day feel a little less dull. She seemed friendly, calm, easy to talk to. It wasn't attraction, it was relief. Someone noticed me, spoke to me like I mattered, even if only for a moment. I tried not to overthink it, but a strange comfort settled in each time our paths crossed. One evening, just as I was about to step inside my apartment, I heard a hurried knock on my door. When I opened it, Sarah stood there, breathless and anxious. She said her shower was leaking badly, water spilling everywhere, and she didn't know what to do. Her voice trembled between panic and embarrassment as she asked if I could take a look, because she didn't know anyone else in the building. Without thinking twice, I grabbed some tools and followed her down the hall. It felt like the kind of simple help anyone would offer. Inside her apartment, water pooled across the bathroom floor. She apologized repeatedly, thanking me for coming so quickly. I focused on the problem, tightening valves, shutting off water, trying to control the damage. She stood nearby, watching with genuine relief in her eyes. When the water finally stopped, she let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it forever. She smiled, a soft, grateful smile, and said she didn't know how to repay me. In that moment, something shifted, not in action but in feeling. A quiet, unspoken connection lingered between us. I didn't name it, didn't acknowledge it, but I felt it. And even though I walked out telling myself it was nothing, a part of me knew that helping her wasn't just a favor. It was the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for. After that night, I tried to push the whole moment out of my mind, convincing myself it was just a neighborly favor. But the next morning, as I locked my door, she stepped out at the same time. Her hair was still damp, her expression relaxed, and she thanked me again, softer this time, like the gratitude came from somewhere deeper. She laughed about the mess, joked about her terrible luck, and for the first time in a long while I found myself laughing too. It felt natural, effortless, nothing forced or awkward. When she invited me in for just a few minutes to make sure everything in the bathroom was still fine, I agreed without hesitation. Inside, the tension was different, not romantic but strangely comfortable. We talked while I checked the shower. It wasn't small talk anymore. She told me she'd moved to escape a suffocating relationship, a partner who never listened, never cared. Someone who made her feel like she was always trying to earn affection that never came. As she spoke, her voice cracked in places she tried to hide. I didn't know why, but hearing her pain felt familiar. I found myself opening up too, admitting how distant my marriage had become, how silence had replaced connection, how I couldn't remember the last time my wife really looked at me. It wasn't planned. It just slipped out, as if she had unlocked something I'd been holding in for years. There was no flirting, no physical closeness, just honesty. But honesty itself felt dangerous. I realized I was telling her things I hadn't told anyone, things I hadn't even admitted to myself. She listened, not distracted, not half-interested, but fully present, like every word mattered. That alone shook me more than I expected. When our eyes met, there was a quiet understanding, a shared loneliness neither of us had to explain. It was emotional territory we had no right stepping into, but neither of us pulled back. When I left her apartment, my chest felt tight. The hallway felt longer, my own door heavier. I kept replaying her voice, her expressions, the relief she showed when she didn't have to pretend to be strong. I told myself it was just empathy, just two people venting. But deep down I knew I had crossed a line. Not physically, but emotionally. I had let someone else fill the space my wife no longer occupied. And the worst part was how good it felt. All day she lingered in my thoughts. Not her appearance, but her presence. Her warmth. The way she actually listened. The way she made me feel seen. Guilt settled in, but right behind it was a quiet pull I couldn't ignore. Late that evening my phone buzzed. A simple message from her, thanking me again and saying she hoped I was okay after everything I shared. It was harmless on the surface, but I read it twice, then 3 times, feeling something shift even further. That brief text shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. It felt like a thread tying us together. Subtle yet undeniable. I didn't respond right away. I stared at the screen, torn between the life I knew and the connection I wasn't supposed to feel. And in that silence I realized there was no going back to indifference. Whether I admitted it or not, I had already let her into a part of my life that should have belonged only to my marriage. And that quiet, invisible betrayal was the first real crack in everything I thought I could control. I tried to create distance after that message, telling myself it was better to keep things polite and nothing more. But the next day when I stepped into the hallway, she was already there, holding a small container of freshly baked cookies. She said it was just a thank you, nothing serious, but her voice carried a softness that pulled me in before I could think. She asked if I had a minute just to talk, just to make sure I was okay after opening up the way I did. I told myself it would be quick, harmless, and followed her inside. The air felt different this time, quieter, heavier, like both of us were aware of something we weren't saying. We sat close enough to talk comfortably, but even that small distance felt charged. She asked how things were at home, and I hesitated before admitting that nothing had changed. The silence between my wife and me was growing, and I didn't know how to fix it. She lowered her gaze and said she knew exactly what that kind of emptiness felt like, how it could drain a person without ever making a sound. Hearing her say it made the truth hit harder than when I said it myself. She opened up more than before. How she had spent years begging for affection, how every attempt to save her relationship made her feel smaller, how she finally left because staying meant losing herself completely. Her voice trembled, and without thinking, I reached out and touched her hand. It was supposed to be comforting, nothing more, but the moment our skin met, neither of us pulled away. Her fingers tightened slightly around mine, and the room felt smaller, like the world outside didn't exist for a moment. The conversation shifted from pain to understanding, from understanding to connection. She told me I deserved to feel wanted, to feel heard, to feel like more than an afterthought. No one had said anything like that to me in years. The words hit somewhere raw, somewhere unguarded. I found myself admitting how lonely I truly was, how forgotten I felt in my own marriage, how exhausted I was from pretending everything was fine. Saying it out loud made me realize just how desperate I was for something real, something human. When she moved closer, it wasn't sudden. It was slow, almost hesitant, like she was giving me every chance to step back. I didn't. Her shoulder brushed mine, her breath close enough to feel, and the space between us dissolved. She leaned into me, and I wrapped my arms around her without thinking. It started as comfort, but the embrace lingered too long, became too warm, too intentional. Her head rested against my chest, and I felt her heartbeat quicken. Mine matched it. Neither of us spoke because words would have made the moment undeniable. When she lifted her face, our eyes locked, and everything we'd been holding back sat right there in the silence. The tension wasn't confusion anymore. It was clarity. We both knew what we were stepping into, knew it was wrong, knew it wasn't innocent anymore. Her hand slid up my arm, slow and deliberate, and I didn't stop her. The closeness shifted, deepened, crossed a line we could never uncross. The world narrowed to a single breath, a single decision, a single moment where everything changed. Whatever happened next didn't need explanation. It was written in the way we held each other, in the way neither of us pulled away. The boundary between help and desire, between comfort and betrayal, disappeared completely. And in that quiet, undeniable surrender, the infidelity stopped being a possibility and became a reality neither of us could take back. The next morning, the weight of what had happened pressed down on me like a stone. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't look at my own reflection without seeing the moment replaying in my mind. Guilt crawled into every corner, mixing with a strange longing I couldn't ignore. I kept telling myself it was a mistake, A lapse, a single moment that didn't define me. But the memory of her warmth, her closeness, refused to let me forget. Every thought of her pulled me further from the life I had promised to protect. I avoided her the following days, pretending everything was normal. But the distance didn't erase the connection. When I passed her in the hallway, I felt an almost unbearable tension. Her eyes searched for mine, silently asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. I looked away, but even as I did, I felt her presence lingering in my mind. I wanted to tell myself that nothing had happened, that it could all be forgotten, but a part of me knew the truth. Something fundamental had shifted, and nothing could undo it. Meanwhile, at home, my wife noticed the change in me. Small questions about my day, casual remarks, the way I hesitated before answering, all of it drew her attention. She didn't know the reason, but she felt the distance growing. The subtle shift that had begun the moment I had let someone else fill the void in my life. Her concern, her questions made me shrink inside, because I knew she deserved honesty. Yet honesty would shatter more than I was ready to face. Every interaction with her now carried a tension I could neither resolve nor escape. Then came the message from her. Just a simple line asking if I was thinking about her, if I was okay. It wasn't dramatic, but it carried a weight that made my chest tighten. I stared at it for minutes, my mind spinning with conflicting emotions. Desire, guilt, fear, and longing warred inside me. I knew responding would draw me back into the connection, yet ignoring it felt impossible. It was the pull of something I shouldn't have allowed, something that had already rewritten the boundaries I had tried so hard to maintain. Later that evening, I realized I had a choice that could no longer be postponed. I could confront my feelings, confront the truth of my marriage, or I could sink further into this dangerous, uncharted territory with her. The thought of either option made my stomach churn. I wanted clarity, but clarity demanded confrontation, and confrontation meant consequences. And just as I tried to steel myself, I noticed a small detail. A message notification my wife had glanced at, a receipt, a subtle sign that the secret wasn't safe anymore. Fear mixed with the remnants of desire. Helping her had seemed innocent at first, but now it had spiraled into something far beyond control. I sat there, heart racing, knowing that life had changed irrevocably. What had started as a favor, a small act of kindness, had become a web of emotions I could not escape. Desire, guilt, longing, and regret all intertwined, leaving me trapped between two worlds, one of loyalty and one of surrender. And as the night deepened, I understood that nothing would ever feel the same again. What was once an ordinary life had fractured, and the consequences of that fracture were only beginning to surface.